Just minutes ago, a command echoed through the corridors of power, one so sudden, so unprecedented, that even seasoned palace guards froze in disbelief. No warning, no explanation. Just a name and a removal order. Security detail, gone. Protection, revoked. And at the center of it all stood one man, Prince William. But why would the future king strip Queen Camilla of royal protection, and what forced his hand today? Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The order was delivered without ceremony, without debate, and without delay. Senior officers received the directive in clipped, unmistakable language. Effective immediately. Reassign personnel. Withdraw coverage. Confirm compliance. Within moments, long-standing routines that had surrounded Camilla for years dissolved into silence. Guards who once stood at her side stepped back, not out of disrespect, but out of duty to a higher authority. And that authority now belonged to William. The speed alone told a story. This was not a rumor tested quietly behind closed doors. This was decisive, intentional, final. Whispers spread faster than footsteps. Palace staff exchanged glances heavy with disbelief, careful not to speak too loudly, yet unable to contain the shock. Removing security from a senior royal is not administrative housekeeping. It is a statement. It signals distrust. It implies distance. It redraws lines that were once considered unbreakable. For decades, security has symbolized status, legitimacy, and institutional backing. To lose it is to lose more than protection. It is to lose standing. And in that single stroke, Camilla's position shifted from safeguarded to exposed. What makes this moment even more staggering is the timing. There were no public warnings, no carefully prepared announcements, no staged transitions. It happened in real time, as if something urgent had forced William's hand. Those close to the inner workings of the palace suggest this was not an emotional outburst or a reckless display of authority. The precision of the order speaks of preparation. Paperwork drafted. Conversations held in secrecy. Decisions weighed long before the public ever sensed a tremor. If this was calculated, then the calculation began long ago. And then there is Camilla herself, one moment surrounded by layers of institutional protection, the next standing without the invisible shield that defines royal permanence. Vulnerability in the monarchy is rare, and when it appears, it carries meaning. Isolation at this level is not accidental. It creates pressure. It sends a signal not just to the individual, but to everyone watching from within the palace walls. If this could happen to her, it could happen to anyone. The deeper truth may lie not in the removal itself, but in what it suggests about trust behind closed doors. Trust once fractured rarely mends quietly, and as aides scramble to manage the optics and steady the narrative, one unsettling realization begins to take shape. This was never about security alone. It was about authority, about control, about a future king drawing a line that cannot easily be erased. But as the palace scrambled to process what had just happened, a far more disturbing question began to emerge. What could possibly justify such a drastic move against the queen consort herself? For months, the palace appeared calm, controlled, composed, unshaken. But beneath the polished surface, something was shifting. Conversations grew colder, meetings shorter, glances sharper. And now, with William's explosive decision, the illusion has shattered. Was this moment building quietly behind closed doors? Or was it triggered by something so explosive, it forced the future king into immediate action? The truth is, tension rarely erupts without warning. It simmers, it tightens the air, it turns ordinary exchanges into silent battlegrounds. In recent months, those closest to the inner circle sensed a subtle but undeniable change in the dynamic between William and Camilla. Public appearances still projected unity, but behind that carefully maintained composure, differences in vision were becoming harder to disguise. William, preparing for the weight of a future crown, was increasingly assertive. Camilla, long accustomed to influence and proximity to the throne, was not easily sidelined. When authority begins to overlap, friction becomes inevitable. King Charles's evolving role only intensified the strain. As his responsibilities shifted and attention turned toward succession, the balance of power inside the palace quietly recalibrated. William's voice carried greater weight. His decisions were scrutinized less as suggestions, and more as signals of what was to come. For some, this transition represented stability. For others, it felt like displacement. Influence within the monarchy is rarely surrendered willingly, and even subtle shifts can ignite silent rivalries. What once functioned as collaboration began to feel like competition. Inside private meetings, discussions reportedly grew more direct. Strategic disagreements about public messaging, long-term reforms, and the future identity of the monarchy were no longer politely smoothed over. They lingered. They resurfaced. And with each unresolved clash, trust eroded. Those who observed closely noticed that advisors began aligning themselves more carefully. Some leaned toward William's modernizing instincts, believing change was necessary for survival. Others remained quietly loyal to Camilla, seeing her as a stabilizing force rooted in experience. The divide was not loud, but it was real. What makes this moment so explosive is not simply that William acted. It is that he acted decisively. Removing Camilla's security was not a spur-of-the-moment decision born from emotion. It feels like the culmination of private frustrations reaching a breaking point. Breaking points do not arrive overnight. They are built from accumulated disagreements, from conversations that ended without resolution, from warnings that went unheeded. When restraint finally gives way to action, it often reveals just how deep the fracture truly runs. And now, looking back, the signs seem clearer. The shorter exchanges, the measured distance, the careful language in public statements that once sounded warm but gradually cooled. This was not a sudden storm. It was pressure gathering beneath a calm surface, waiting for a single trigger to release it. William's order did not create the tension. It exposed it. It turned private strain into public rupture. As the reality of that rupture spreads, palace insiders are beginning to understand that this was never about a single disagreement. It was about direction, about who shapes the monarchy's next chapter. And as whispers of internal conflict began to leak beyond palace gates, attention turned to one critical question. What exactly did William discover that changed everything overnight? There are moments in royal history when everything changes in an instant. Not gradually, not publicly, but behind sealed doors, where truths are uncovered and decisions must be made. Sources now suggest that something was discovered, something serious, something that left Prince William with no choice but to act immediately. But what was it? And why did it require stripping Camilla of protection without warning? The urgency of the order tells its own story. Decisions of this magnitude are rarely impulsive, yet this one carried the weight of immediacy. 2 minutes ago. That was the language circulating inside palace walls. Not tomorrow. Not after review. Now. Such precision suggests revelation, not speculation. It implies that information reached William's hands that altered the balance of trust in a single stroke. Whatever he saw or heard was powerful enough to override tradition, protocol, and the delicate hierarchy that has governed the monarchy for generations. Speculation points toward confidential reports, documents never meant for public eyes. Palace intelligence, internal assessments, private communications that may have shifted perception from doubt to certainty. The monarchy survives on controlled narratives, but beneath those narratives lies a network of quiet monitoring, discreet briefings, and guarded exchanges. If those mechanisms uncovered something alarming, William would have faced a choice few are ever prepared to confront. Protect the institution at all costs, or protect a relationship that was already strained. In that moment, he chose the crown. Removing security is not symbolic theater. It is a declaration of distance. It signals that protection, both physical and institutional, is no longer guaranteed. For Camilla, the implications are profound. Security detail represents trust, endorsement, and status. To lose it abruptly is to be repositioned, to be separated from the inner circle of unquestioned authority. That gravity cannot be overstated. William understood this. He knew the message it would send not only to Camilla, but to every advisor. every staff member, every observer inside and outside the palace gates. And yet, beneath the firmness of the decision lies a human struggle. William is not merely an administrator of royal protocol. He is a son navigating loyalty to his father, a future king balancing duty with personal history, a leader aware that every action will define his reign long before it begins. If this discovery forced his hand, it likely did so against his own emotional resistance. Acting swiftly may have required suppressing hesitation, ignoring potential backlash, and accepting that the consequences would be immediate and unforgiving. What makes this chapter even more volatile is the silence surrounding the details. No confirmation, no clarification, just a void where explanation should be. That void fuels tension. It invites interpretation. It allows imagination to fill the gaps with possibilities more dramatic than reality itself. And perhaps that is what makes this moment so combustible. The public sees the action, but not the cause. The palace feels the tremor, but not the full truth. Information withheld often carries more weight than information revealed. Now the monarchy stands at a crossroads defined not by transparency, but by secrecy. William's decisive move suggests certainty, yet the absence of public disclosure keeps the mystery alive. Was this about betrayal, misjudgment, or something even more destabilizing? The stakes are no longer limited to personal disagreement. They extend to institutional survival. And as tension tightens with each passing hour, one fact becomes undeniable. This was a turning point engineered by knowledge too powerful to ignore. But while William acted swiftly, the silence from Camilla herself has only deepened the mystery. Because her reaction may reveal more than anyone expected. No statement. No denial. No visible reaction. As the world waits for answers, Camilla remains silent. And in the world of royalty, silence is never accidental. Is this shock or control? Is she blindsided or preparing her next move? Because sometimes the most dangerous response is not outrage, it is calculated quiet. And right now, that silence is speaking louder than any royal announcement ever could. In the hours following William's decisive order, many expected resistance, a firm rebuttal, a carefully worded clarification, something. Instead, there was nothing. No public appeal, no visible frustration, just composure. And that composure has become the most unsettling part of this unfolding crisis. In royal conflicts, words can be weapons, but silence can be strategy. It buys time. It forces opponents to wonder. It allows narratives to twist in uncertainty while the silent figure observes from a position that appears passive, but may be anything but. Psychologically, silence creates imbalance. It shifts pressure onto the one who acted. William moved boldly. Camilla has not moved at all. That contrast is powerful. If she were outraged, the public might rally behind her. If she appeared shattered, sympathy would follow. Instead, her stillness denies easy interpretation. It suggests either extraordinary restraint or meticulous planning, and both possibilities are equally dangerous. There is also the unsettling thought that perhaps she anticipated this moment. Tensions had been rising. Signals were present. If Camilla sensed the ground shifting beneath her influence, she may have prepared quietly, calculating responses long before the order was issued. In that light, her silence becomes less about shock and more about timing. Timing to release information. Timing to align allies. Timing to respond when it would hurt the most. In the monarchy, survival is rarely about emotional reaction. It is about positioning. Yet behind that composed exterior lies undeniable vulnerability. Security withdrawn. Authority questioned. Status subtly destabilized. For someone who fought fiercely for acceptance within the institution, this move strikes at the core of her hard-earned legitimacy. Public humiliation in royal life is not loud or theatrical. It is cold and procedural. It happens through formal decisions that quietly redraw lines of power. And while Camilla's face may reveal nothing, the emotional weight of that shift cannot be dismissed. The real tension now lies in what remains unseen. Is she gathering support from loyal advisors? Is she waiting for King Charles to intervene, or is she allowing William's bold move to stand, knowing that overreach can eventually weaken the one who initiates it? Her silence keeps every possibility alive. It prevents closure. It sustains suspense. It forces the palace and the public to hold their breath. Because when someone powerful chooses quiet over confrontation, it is rarely surrender. It is often preparation. And as days pass without explanation, the mystery deepens rather than fades. William acted with force. Camilla has responded with stillness. Between those two opposing strategies, a fragile monarchy trembles, unsure which will ultimately prove stronger. And as Camilla remains silent, another layer of the crisis begins to unfold. Because inside the palace, loyalties are starting to shift. The royal family has always thrived on unity, or at least the illusion of it. But now, that illusion is cracking. Staff members are choosing sides. Advisors are whispering in corners. And within the palace itself, a silent divide is forming. Some stand firmly behind William's decision, while others remain loyal to Camilla. And when loyalty splits inside the monarchy, the consequences can be far more explosive than anyone expects. What began as a single order has evolved into a quiet battle of alignment. In private offices and guarded conversations, positions are being taken without formal declarations. Those who believe in William's vision see his move as decisive leadership, a necessary assertion of authority at a pivotal moment in the monarchy's future. To them, strength now prevents weakness later. But others view the decision differently. They see disruption. They see risk. They see a fracture that could widen beyond repair if not handled with care. The divide is not loud. It does not erupt in public confrontation. It operates through silence, through careful language, through subtle signals of approval or hesitation. Certain advisors now find themselves navigating delicate territory, measuring every word before it reaches either side. Long-standing loyalties are being tested. Friendships built over years of shared service are straining under the weight of unspoken questions. And at the center of it all stands a family that once projected seamless solidarity. History offers a warning. The monarchy has survived wars, scandals, and public scrutiny, but internal division has always been its most dangerous adversary. When disagreement stays contained, it can be managed. When it spills into factions, it reshapes power. Staff members who once worked in coordinated harmony are now assessing where influence truly lies. Some calculate their future alongside William, aligning themselves with the coming reign. Others remain steadfast in their support of Camilla, unwilling to abandon a figure who has weathered decades of public trial. This tension extends beyond advisors. It touches family bonds. Decisions that appear procedural often carry personal consequences. William's choice, bold and unmistakable, has forced relatives into uncomfortable positions. To support him openly may be seen as distancing from Camilla. To defend her could be interpreted as resisting the future king. Such emotional crosscurrents do not fade quickly. They linger. They deepen. They change the tone of private conversations that once felt predictable. At stake is more than a temporary disagreement. Stability itself begins to feel fragile when unity falters. The monarchy relies not only on tradition but on perception. The image of cohesion strengthens its authority. Cracks weaken it. And right now, those cracks are forming quietly beneath the surface. Every whisper carries weight. Every delayed response feeds speculation. The institution, once steady, now feels suspended between two centers of gravity. What makes this moment so precarious is the absence of resolution. No reconciliation has been announced. No explanation has softened the divide. Instead, silence from Camilla and firmness from William create opposing forces that continue to pull the palace in different directions. It is in these silent struggles that deeper institutional crises are born. Not overnight, not with fanfare, but gradually as loyalties harden and compromise becomes harder to reach. And as internal divisions grow stronger, the outside world is beginning to react, and the public response could change everything. It did not take long. Within minutes, the story spread like wildfire. Headlines exploded. Social media erupted. And the public, once distant observers, are now fully engaged in the unfolding royal crisis. But this is not just another headline. This is a moment that could redefine public trust in the monarchy. And as reactions intensify, one question dominates. Has William just protected the crown? or shattered it. The speed of the reaction was staggering. Commentators rushed to interpret the decision before the palace offered even a whisper of clarification. News panels dissected every possible motive. Online debates turned fierce within hours. Some voices praised William's boldness, calling it the mark of a decisive future king, unwilling to tolerate uncertainty or risk. Others condemned the move as reckless, arguing that stripping security from a senior royal signals instability at the highest level. The divide outside the palace now mirrors the fracture within it. Public perception has always been the monarchy's invisible lifeline. Power in this institution does not rely solely on authority or lineage. It depends on belief. Belief that the crown stands united. Belief that its leaders act with integrity and foresight. When that belief wavers, questions multiply. For supporters of William, this moment represents strength. They see a leader prepared to make hard choices, even painful ones, to safeguard the institution's future. For critics, it feels like unnecessary escalation, a public rupture that risks damaging trust rather than restoring it. Emotion is driving the conversation as much as logic. Longtime admirers of Camilla express shock and sympathy, questioning why such a drastic measure would be taken without explanation. Others argue that if such an extreme action occurred, it must have been justified by something serious behind closed doors. The absence of detail fuels speculation. And speculation, in the age of instant communication, spreads faster than truth ever could. Pressure on the palace is mounting. Silence, once a strategic tool, now feels like an open invitation for interpretation. The longer officials refrain from clarifying the decision, the more narratives take shape without their control. Public trust is delicate. It bends under uncertainty. Every hour without explanation adds weight to an already fragile moment. The monarchy stands at a crossroads where transparency could calm the storm, or intensify it. Beyond national borders, global attention has locked on to this unfolding drama. International observers are not simply watching, they are analyzing what this means for the future of the crown. Stability has long been one of the monarchy's strongest assets. Now that stability feels tested. Allies, critics, and curious onlookers alike are asking whether this marks a strategic reset or the beginning of a deeper unraveling. And through it all, the focus keeps returning to one question. Was this an act of protection or provocation? The answer may determine not just Camilla's fate, but William's legacy. Because bold leadership inspires confidence only if it withstands scrutiny. If it falters, it invites doubt. And yet, as the world watches closely, one figure remains at the center of it all, Prince William himself, now facing the weight of his own decision. Leadership is often defined not by easy choices, but by impossible ones. And today, Prince William made a decision that could define his future as king forever. Was this a calculated act of strength, or a dangerous gamble that could spiral out of control? Because in stripping Camilla of her security, William has not just made a statement, he has triggered a chain reaction that may reshape the monarchy itself. This moment will not be remembered as routine. It will be remembered as decisive. In a single order, William stepped fully into the shadow of the crown he is destined to wear. He did not test the waters. He did not soften the message. He acted. And decisive action, while admired by some, carries undeniable risk. Strength can inspire confidence, but it can also provoke resistance. The difference lies in how the aftermath unfolds. To confront a senior royal figure, especially one so closely tied to the reigning monarch, is not a simple administrative move. It is deeply personal. It carries emotional weight that cannot be separated from institutional duty. William's choice likely required him to reconcile loyalty with responsibility, history with future ambition. That internal struggle may never be publicly acknowledged, yet it shapes the gravity of this act. Behind the firmness of the order stands a man aware that every decision will be measured against his readiness to lead. There is also the undeniable calculation of timing. Acting publicly and decisively signals confidence. It tells the world that hesitation is not part of his leadership style. But such boldness comes with exposure. If this move proves justified, it strengthens his authority and solidifies his reputation as a protector of the institution. If it backfires, It risks casting doubt on his judgment before his reign has even begun. The line between authority and instability is thinner than it appears. For the monarchy, this is more than a family disagreement. It is a test of direction. William represents a new chapter, one that promises modernization and reform. Yet reform often unsettles tradition. By drawing such a clear boundary with Camilla, he has signaled that the future may not accommodate the past as comfortably as before. That shift, while bold, can unsettle those who value continuity above change. The long-term implications are impossible to ignore. Future historians may look back at this moment as the first true glimpse of William's reign in action. Was it firm and necessary, or abrupt and divisive? The answer will depend not only on what prompted the decision, but on how he navigates the storm that follows. Leadership is not defined by the act alone, but by the resilience shown afterward. And now uncertainty lingers. The palace is watching. The public is watching. Allies and critics alike are waiting to see whether this calculated step strengthens the crown or fractures it further. William has taken control of the narrative for now, but control must be maintained. Authority, once asserted, demands consistency. Doubt, once introduced, demands resolution. The weight of this choice will not fade quickly. It will echo in every subsequent decision, every public appearance, every strategic shift. In acting boldly, William has proven he is willing to confront discomfort head-on. But boldness invites scrutiny, and scrutiny rarely sleeps. And as the consequences begin to unfold, the biggest question still remains unanswered. What happens next for Camilla? The order has been given. The protection has been removed, and the silence still lingers. But this story is far from over. Because in the world of royalty, consequences do not unfold instantly. They build, they escalate, and they return when least expected. What happens next could redefine power, loyalty, and legacy within the monarchy. And as uncertainty looms, one thing is clear: this moment was never just about security. It was about control. Now all eyes turn to Camilla. Silence can only hold for so long before it transforms into action. Will she step forward with a composed statement that reframes the narrative? Will she lean on long-standing alliances quietly forged over years of perseverance? Or will she allow the pressure to mount, knowing that unresolved tension can sometimes weaken the one who initiated it? Each possible move carries risk. Each response could either steady the institution or shake it further. The waiting itself has become a strategy. The monarchy, already balancing tradition with transition, now stands on fragile ground. Authority depends on cohesion, and cohesion depends on trust. William's bold decision may have asserted leadership, but it also exposed fault lines that cannot easily be sealed. The crown has weathered crises before, yet internal fractures carry a different weight. They do not roar like public scandal. They erode quietly. And erosion over time can alter foundations once thought unbreakable. Looking ahead, the long-term impact may stretch far beyond this immediate dispute. Future engagements, public appearances, and strategic initiatives will now be interpreted through the lens of this moment. Every interaction between William and Camilla will be scrutinized. Every subtle gesture will carry amplified meaning. Power inside the monarchy has always been carefully balanced. That balance now feels recalibrated, but whether it stabilizes or tilts further remains uncertain. There is still room for reconciliation. History has shown that royal conflicts can soften when guided by shared purpose. A carefully negotiated understanding could restore equilibrium and strengthen the institution after its trial. Yet escalation remains equally possible. Pride, loyalty, and conviction can entrench positions. And when influential figures refuse to yield, tension transforms into enduring rivalry. The emotional undertones of this crisis, betrayal, protection, ambition, duty, continue to swirl beneath the surface, shaping outcomes not yet visible. What makes this chapter so compelling is its unresolved nature. No final statement has been delivered. No definitive explanation has closed the loop. Instead, the palace exists in suspended anticipation. The public debates. Advisors calculate. Supporters hope. Critics speculate. And through it all, the monarchy moves forward, outwardly composed yet inwardly adjusting to a shift that cannot be undone. The emotional and political aftermath will not reveal itself overnight. It will unfold in measured steps, in subtle repositioning, in strategic silence or decisive counteraction. William has drawn a line. Camilla stands at its edge. The institution watches both carefully. In royal history, defining moments rarely announce their full significance at once. They reveal themselves gradually, through consequences that echo long after the initial act. Because in the end, this was not just a decision, it was the beginning of something far bigger, and far more dangerous than anyone inside the palace is ready to admit. Thanks for watching. Please do not forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.